Welcome to the Human Rights Revision video for the Citizenship and Religion course. One of the important things we need to know about is what different religions think about the law. Now, Christians believe that they should follow the law because it's right, not just because it's the law. They think that God put the leaders of different countries in place. The posh term for this is the divine right of kingship. Muslims, on the other hand, look to the Quran for guidance. That's their holy book. All laws must agree with the principles set out in their holy book, otherwise they are not just. If a law is not just, there is no reason for a Muslim to follow it. You also need to know what the religions think about the idea of human rights. Christians believe that God made everyone equal. Because of this, they support the idea of human rights because everyone is equal and should be treated fairly and treated well. This also links into the idea of the Good Samaritan that you knew about from your prejudice and discrimination module. Muslims, on the other hand, have specific human rights protected in certain countries. For example, property is sacred and you can't insult others, therefore protecting the individual and what they own. The major policies you should be aware of. First of all, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. This was agreed by most of the countries in the world after the Second World War due to the atrocities which had happened at the time. The Human Rights Act is a law passed in our country, Britain. This protects the rights of people who live in Britain and gives expectations of what citizens, that's us, should expect. The Children's Rights Charter was also from the United Nations. This is protecting children specifically because they are much more vulnerable than adults. There's concerns, obviously, about child exploitation when it comes to sex work and child labour. If you can give examples of places where these happen, such as sweatshop factories in the Middle East, or even suggesting ideas like child soldiers in wars in Africa, that would make you look extra clever for dropping an example in. There's also a lot of groups who do try to help protect people's rights. Childline, for example, is a group dedicated to helping children who are in need. It's based in the UK, and any child or anyone who is concerned about a child can phone to receive help. The Citizens Advice Bureau is another charity organisation. They allow people to get advice, help and support on what their rights are. That way, people are protected from being abused and mistreated if they don't know their rights. The Samaritans is another group who are also a charity. They were founded by Christians and their sole purpose is to make people supported in times of extreme need. They are best known for supporting people who are depressed or have suicidal thoughts. Pressure groups are another important thing to know about for this exam. Pressure groups are groups that try to get the government to change the law. They might do this through petitioning them, that means basically approaching them and asking them nicely, or having petitions as in written lists of signatures. They might be doing it by peaceful campaigning or writing letters. There's lots of ways to try and persuade them to change the law. Some examples are the nuclear disarmament groups. They want people to get rid of the bomb. People who campaign for and against abortion, that's pro-choice for people who are for allowing abortion, and pro-life for people who are against abortion. You also need to know that for the life issues module. Then there's Greenpeace, who are an environmental group. They try and protect the planet and stop people dumping oil in the sea, killing endangered species, the obvious sort of things that protect the earth, and they petition governments all over the world to do that. We also look at the idea of protest. Now, we've done about peaceful protest when we're looking at other issues, but this is specifically to do with protesting for human rights. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." That means that Jesus is a big fan of peace. That means that Christians would prefer peaceful protest. The key word there is prefer. Sometimes violence is necessary to achieve a greater good. This is the idea of free will, that you make your own decisions. This comes with a responsibility. So if you saw things happening that shouldn't be, you have a responsibility to stand up and protect those in need. Islam means peace. So Muslims also believe that protests should be peaceful, but they are willing to use violence if necessary. Many of the reasons for this are the reasons for jihad that we know from the war module. An example of someone that believed that violence was okay when it was necessary is Malcolm X. He fought for rights for black African Americans in the 1960s. It's also important to have an example of a religious leader who was a human rights campaigner. You can use this if you're specifically asked, or if they're asking you for a viewpoint of religious believers, you can drop this person in to back up your argument. I like to suggest Martin Luther King, a Christian. Remember to see his religion. He organised bus boycotts, which meant that people didn't get on buses because black people were being mistreated. A march on Washington. He also made various speeches, some of which are very, very famous, such as the I Have a Dream speech. And he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to promote human rights and equality. Each of these points, if turned into a sentence or two, could be worth a mark in the exam. So remember, don't just bullet point, explain the idea.